We're back. Number 6, 10 tips to help you win football games. And today's tip, we've gotten through the first 5 of these, halfway through, practice playing football. So here's the tip. This is going to be real innovative, Chad, so get ready. The best way to get better at playing football is to play football. I mean, I expect like a
concept.
Well, I expect Michael to add in an applause or something to that. But let me tell you what I mean by this, all joking aside. We had a friend, Ty Maxwell, that coached with us, and I used to tell Ty this all the time. And he came around to this, and by the time we were, winding up our time working together, I remember him specifically talking to me about, the best way to get these kids to play football is just play football. Because what we would do, Chad, is we would go, and you could look at this a few different ways. The obvious thing is the people with 9 cones and hitting them with a bag and making them do a push-up and jumping you know what I mean? All this stuff you do and catching a football, that's wonderful and all, but that ain't football. So some of the stuff you see on Twitter and whatever, there's all these cockamamie drill things. Fantastic. Good for you. Maybe it works for your kids on fundamentals. I'm not saying it doesn't, but that is not football. Okay. So maybe if the kid's wonderful at football, maybe if they're going into the NFL and they're with Willie Anderson, then we need all these O-line techniques. But a lot of times we just need this son of a bitch to block the guy in front of him, to reach him or block down or pass pro or whatever it is. And they don't even understand when to do it or how to do it or whatever. So here's the example I would use. And then I'm going to turn this over to Chad before you really get into the details. Let's say we're in an O-line period. Let's say it's O-line individual. How many times, Chad, we did it, everybody does it. Y'all are working reach blocks. So maybe you got a partner, you're reaching him, he's reaching you, you're talking about the technique, the hand placement, the footwork, whatever it is of all these reach blocks. Then we blow the whistle, we get some water, we go do perimeter run period with the whole team. We call jet sweep. He reaches. He has no idea that that's what we were just working. So even though he got it right in the drill where you coached him up, he stood there like he was lost and didn't do any of that exact technique when you were in team. That comes from a couple of things. One's a lack of confidence, understanding, not playing as fast, mentally, like we talked about. But it also comes from the kid not realizing that he was running the jet sweep drill over there in individual. He was playing football. Make the kids play football. So put them across from each other and say, hey, we're running jet sweep here, buddy. For us, that was Jerry or Jello. Give them the side. What do you do? I'll reach. Okay, let's go. Then when you get a team that's actually playing football still, the best way for kids to get better at playing football is to actually play football. Put them in as many, I'm not saying I'm not a fan of individual or anything. I'm just saying put them in as many situations, 7-on-7, 11-on-11, inside drill, whatever, where they are really playing ball. They don't learn this stuff in the backyard like we used to. Chad, you can even argue because we didn't set this up, by the way. If you disagree, feel free to. But is that not a common O-line occurrence?
Yes, 100%. You have got to limit the number of things you do that don't relate to a play that you're going to run. There are like a million different drills, like you just talked about, you can see on Twitter, but those drills, that might be good for movement, how their hips move and all that stuff, which is all great, really it is. But if that doesn't apply to the plays you run in a football game, then there's no need to do any of that crap. It doesn't matter. So like you said, when we are over there practicing reach blocks, you do have to relate it to, look, we're running Jerry. We're going to deal with a guy who's outside. We're going to deal with a guy's head up. This is how we attack them based on how they line up. So you use the terminology over and over again so it applies to them. Oh, it's Jerry. I've always got to reach. I've got to reach. Where's he lined up? How do I execute it when he's a little further outside? What I try to do. All those things have to apply. And all the stuff you talk about, some people get all bent out of shape, like, why are you using a bag to do that? Most people aren't like this much anymore. If they used to be, they had to be man on man. They had to kick somebody's ass. Those bags are wonderful to use because you don't bang anybody up. That's the whole point of it. And that's a whole different talk about things to use, but you've got to do those movements that are going to be executed in the game. If you don't
that's
do
right.
those, there's no point in the practice individual time.
No, that's right. You got to find ways to play football. And I just feel like so many things in the drill work, and we've been using offensive examples, but I'm going to use a defensive example to Michael in a minute, turn to him. But in regardless of what it is, make them do the exact football movements. And in my personal preference, especially offensively, I think you put them in teamish settings. It's interesting that when we started coaching or when I played, it was stretch and scrimmage, right? I mean, stretch and scrimmage. And that became real unpopular because for many reasons. One, that was ridiculous, but we did old school stretch and we got after it basically. A couple minutes individual, let's go. And it's piling on each other. I ain't talking about scrimmage like we did. Then people went away from that and it got into this whole very diverse thing, which we were a part of too, getting away from the stretch and scrimmage model. And it's all very choreographed. But I'm not sure that we got so choreographed and so technical. And that guy you're talking about, Chad, this head up right here. Now we got him holding a PVC pipe and he's standing on one leg with a pipe in his mouth. And you know what I mean? Like it's something where you're like, what in the hell is this?
Right.
Like, what is this we're asking this kid to do? And obviously I'm joking about all the examples, but we are asking kids to do, we're trying to add one more thing to make it a little bit better, a little more fun. And along the line, we got something away from, we may be heading back toward more stretch and scrimmage.
Right.
And I'm not advocating to stretch and scrimmage, but I am saying when you go to your group work and your individual and stuff, you got to make it football like. You can't be so holding a PVC pipe in a bag and whatever else that the kids don't really translate it to ball. I think when that kid gets really good at reach blocking, you can make him do it with a PVC pipe or a bag. And I'm trying not to use anything specific, so I hope those are vague enough. But I would say right now, I'd say 90% of our listenership ain't there.
Mm-hmm. The younger the kid, the more they need to have contact with another
They need to
player.
play football, like just execute football plays. Always crack me up. People thought like people running like routes and stuff. They don't even run in the game. You ever see that like the wide receiver coach running routes? They don't even run the game, or even in a quarterback warm up, they're throwing stuff they don't even run. Like if you're going to warm up the quarterback, throw hitches and screens if that's what you throw, or you know what I mean? Make stuff as football related as possible. Michael, we didn't use much defense here, so I said I was going to set you up, but is any of that applicable differently from a perspective of the defensive quarterback?
I don't think so. I think it's, we always tried to make sure that the stuff we were working on was things that we needed to get better at. I think there's a fine line on some of the stuff you talk about where, there might be a place in the off-season stuff to do some different things that are, maybe more geared towards making you a better athlete. Sometimes it is good to do, you're trying to do those certain things, but, when you're practicing and you got a game on Friday, then I think it's very important that we're not trying to build a better athlete that second. We're trying to make this kid a better football player. So we got to focus more on the football part of it. In the summer, I think there is a place for you to do some of these different things, maybe because we are trying to make this kid into a better athlete. We don't have a game coming up right around the corner. So I think there is it depends on where you are in your season for some of this a little bit. But once you get into in-season stuff, I think no doubt that it has to be football specific. Like, what is this kid going to have to do this week? And what is he not very good at? What do we need to work on?
I'll give you a good example of that is defensively, we found that people lining up wrong is about 90% of the problems, to be honest. I mean, missed tackles are important, but a lot of times people miss tackles they might would have missed anyway. We could have repped it till the cows come home. They, 7 or 8 out of 10 times, they'd probably miss tackle anyway. Lining up wrong is something that everyone should not do. You should never miss a line. There's no excuse for it. Our teams did it all the time. I'm not saying that that makes you a bad coach or anything, but it is 100% fixable. It's 100% fixable. Missed tackles are not 100% fixable. Is that a better way to put it? You can fix them to some degree. You can fix technique to some degree. You can teach a DB how to play the football to some degree, but they're not 100% fixable. Lining up wrong is 100% fixable. One of the reasons people line up wrong is they don't rep it enough, us included, when we did have the issue. Spend too much time with a bunch of other stuff that probably ain't going to matter. DBs running 8 million different back pedal cone drills, jump breaking on balls and routes that they're never going to see, and they can't even line up to damn trips. You know, because they don't know how to play football. They understand some techniques. They don't know how to play. Now, let me hit on the point Michael made about training. In no way, shape, or form, full disclaimer here, am I advocating this in place of training athletes. Absolutely not. I'm talking about the 2 hours we're at football practice. And Michael said that too, but I want to reiterate that. I'm not saying there's not a place to develop athletes and a lot of different tools and modalities, to use one of my old guys' words, a lot of modalities to make them better. But at practice, you better play some football. You better play some football. You better find as many ways. I'm even getting to the point where I wouldn't run a bunch of 7-on-7, to be honest. It's not football. I mean, it's fine to run some routes, fine to install some stuff. But you better be able to do it when the quarterback has to shuffle and throw. You know, quarterback step up and throw, quarterback throw hot. You know, I mean, you better make it a little more realistic if you want to make some football plays on Friday night games. You make 7-on-7 plays, that's fine. But you kind of can get lulled to sleep a little bit on 7-on-7. Sometimes the quarterbacks that are the best on 7-on-7 are not the best at 11-on-11. They're just not. So, you know, if you can eliminate some of the hitting part of it of trying to not get somebody hurt, playing 11-on-11 and calling pass plays every play like you would on 7-on-7 may be a better model for it. Anyway, here's the ways I came up with to practice more football. Because like we try to do here on the podcast, being men of the people and all three of us, men of the people, we try not to just tell y'all what you're doing everything wrong, but give you some tips within the tip on how to do it better. So the tip is play more football at practice. How can you play more football at practice? Number one, give each period a focus. Meaning, that may sound simple. You may say, well, yeah, of course. I don't even mean inside drill. I'm saying if you're going to run inside drill and it's going to be miscellaneous inside run, then that's the focus. We're going to, so the focus of this inside drill today is we're going to mix it up a little bit. We're going to put an even front out there and we're going to run all our inside run plays. Or maybe the next day, we're only going to run count or inside zone, or it doesn't matter what play you call. That's up to you, power. But we're going to pick a play that's an inside run, and it's all we're going to do. So then we're going to do it with the tight end, without a tight end, H back without H, you know, two away, whatever. Then Michael knows on the scout team, he's helped me with the scouts. We need a squeezer. We need a guy boxed in. We need all the different things we're going to see on count because this period has a focus. Like I said, I'm not saying sometimes don't mix it up like team, but let everybody know that's what you're trying to do. Because if you shut shit down to talk about counter when the focus was to mix it up and let's just see if we can block everybody on all these run plays, you missed the point. If you shut it down to fix counter when the point, the focus was counter, you did right. You did exactly what you needed to do. Because you're saying when this period's over, we got to be better at counter. You know, this is something I only know that we were even great at this, by the way. This might be something that we needed to do better at as coaches, but I see it now more. You guys got anything to add to that before I go to the next one?
I think you're right that we may not have been the best at doing this. We were good at doing it with one thing, which was the base play. That we were good at doing, with putting everybody running that buck sweep and putting everybody in about a 12-yard box and having to block everybody and get in there and cut downhill and everything. That we were good at doing. So if God Almighty, if you're going to be good at one thing, it better be the base play, whatever it is, at doing that one that way.
But I would say even like kickoff and kick return or a defense. We're using offensive examples, but you know, you'd almost be better off on your kick return to say, look, today we are going to be ready for sky kicks and squibs.
Right.
Or that's something. It. And damn it, when this period's over, I don't know if we'd work one thing that team's going to run on Friday, but if they sky or squib, damn it, we're going to be in good shape.
We better catch it. Correct.
You know, I mean, I wish we'd have done even more. We did do that, by the way. I bet we were in the top 10 or 15 or 20% of that, but it wasn't enough. what I'm saying is as I reflect, and the reason I'm doing these tips is not to tell everybody how smart I am and how dumb they were. I don't mean it like that. What I mean is as I sit back, I can see some of this stuff clearer than I ever could. And I wish we'd have done even more of that. Just had the folk like almost had it on the practice plan. Yeah, we're going to get us some kick return reps. Because you know what'll happen when you tell him to kick a squib, you know what the kicker's going to do? He's going to kick that damn thing beautifully to about the 3-yard line in the air. So you're going to get that extra rep you wasn't counting on. Don't worry. You're going to get that extra rep. But, and when you tell him to kick it deep, you're going to kick it straight on the ground to somebody. But nevertheless, I just wish we had more focus on like Michael talking about defense. I just wish if I do over again, we do even more of like, we are going to stop Y stick out of trips when this period is over. I don't care if we do anything else. If they beat us on something else, we'll just have to go shake their hand. But we are not going to, they are not going to run this play when this period is over. We're going to have this thing locked down. Kids get bored with that to some degree, but so you got to find creative ways to do it. But the period has a focus. So the coaches even know, is this a good time to make a big deal of something? You know what I mean? Like if the period is covering up all the receivers on Y stick, is this the moment to go off about a stance or tackling, or is it a pursuit? And in other periods, it's like, this is our pursuit period. This is when we need to go off about effort. You know, like, and we're all on the same page with the focus of the period. The second thing, have a smart warm up. I don't care what that is. I'm not advocating what you should do, but I made fun of the stretch and scrimmage earlier. You know, this would be eliminating the stretch part of the stretch and scrimmage practice plan.
Make sure you have a good neck stretch in there.
Getting your neck. Don't be making fun of folks with their neck. Listen, if you are just a very dedicated listener of the Parker Resource Podcast, especially if you're one of those great listeners that partake in purchasing one of my books, I love getting necks if you get neck stretches, okay? But if you're not one of those people, I don't know how stretching your neck really matters, okay? So I try not to get too technical with my making fun of Chad. You know, everybody is a listener. Even neck stretchers are listeners, okay? But all joking on that, if you want to do this, my experience was the static type stretches, even stretching your neck, static type stretches were better at the end of practice. That was my experience. And we tried to static stretch almost every day if we could at the end of practice. So I tried to do it while I was giving some announcements, and some of that stuff sounds better in theory than probably really is in practice. But I did like doing that. Kids stretching their group at the end of practice. So I'm not down on stretching. I am down on stretching when you walk out there. I feel like kids, you know, Sid used to always tell us, you know, dog lays on the porch, sees a cat, he doesn't just stretch out his leg before he takes off after that cat. He just gets up and runs, you know. So these are high school kids. Most of them just get up and run, but you can go half speed through stuff. So Chad used to have an O-line routine that he did where his kids went over there and they went through this routine. It was their warm-up, essentially. We go pat and go. We start out with jogging on short fades, jogging on pat and go, catch a couple balls, warm it up. Then we're getting into routes. We're throwing slants, hitches, screens, plays that we're going to run anyway. But it's part of our warm-up. You know, we did some defensive pursuit stuff where we started out jogging, lining up formations, and then tried to get to a level where you're full speed pursuit. Anything you can be creative on that, smart warm-up, you steal some time, and your kids are practicing more football. Remember, the whole point of today is ways to practice more football. The next thing, coach on the run. You know, something I always did as a coach, and Michael and Chad can verify this for me here in front of everybody. I always get on them coaches for shutting down practice, right? That I did do. And then about 5 minutes into practice, I shut down practice. But that was okay because I was the head coach. I could do stuff like that. You know, you don't have to do what I say.
Just
That's
say
different.
no.
Y'all are supposed to say, no, that never happened.
That was
but
different.
Once a week.
I did used to say something like, be like on kickoff. I was like, hey guys, we got to get as many kickoffs we can. Don't be out there shutting things down. We got to get some kick. It would, for whatever reason, it felt like if I made a deal that day, the first kickoff, I just couldn't stand it. Something happened and I had to say something. So try not to be me like that. Try to coach on the run because it does matter over the course of the year. It does matter if you got 18 reps or 12 reps. It does matter. You shouldn't sacrifice all teaching for that, but it does matter. So if you don't have something real poignant to say, coach on the run. Coach on the run. Transitions are key, meaning moving from one period to the other. You know, if we say we're going to do 6 minutes, talk about getting 18 reps instead of 12, or even 5 instead of 3, or it doesn't matter how many reps it is. We say we're going to throw verticals for 6 minutes, and it takes the wide receivers 2 minutes longer to get over there. We only get 4 minutes. That matters over time. Make your transitions a big deal. What do y'all got to add about transitions in practice? I'll let you guys talk more on that.
I think it's just about efficiency. You know, when you got to have a practice plan, like everybody makes a practice plan, and sometimes they're hard to stay to because you get, you know, something runs a little long and then you get off, you got to cut something. So, I mean, I think you got to just, when you're making that practice plan, understand that it's going to take time to move things around. If you got something that's going to have to take a lot of time to set up for it, that, you know, if there's a way to set it up early, do it. You know, I think it's just preparation is important in making sure that you're not having these 5 minutes in between periods, because that will quickly add up and waste half your practice if you're not careful.
No, I think so. I mean, that's it. You got anything, Chad, for that?
Well, I mean, just as a position coach, you've got to be cognizant of where you're going from period to period. I used to try to set up, I would try to put us, if I could, as close to where we were about to go sometimes also, so that we didn't have to take the fat bodies and run them all the way across the field over there, because I was one of those fat bodies and I never liked having to do that. So I tried to be aware of that most of the time. Also, as a fat body, if you can find some shade, they love that. They usually give you some better effort while you're under some shade too at the same time. But the biggest point is, you've got to have, as a position coach, you've got to utilize every minute you get. So you've got to have that part planned out really well. And you got to have a dang watch so you can set timers on it to remind you while you're going through stuff. That's what I've found to be the most effective, and know that I don't need to work this technique for 10 minutes. I need about 2 minutes of it, because we got about 3 of them we got to do.
People have gotten better at this in part because of segment timers and things, but also because we practice on a game field a lot more than they used to. And so you got the scoreboard is a great way to utilize the timer there. That's helped
Like
some
in
of the
olden days.
But in the old days, yeah. Had to pull out the old Timex,
Right.
or whatever it was, the digital watch that Flat got at Walmart.
The Casio, baby.
Yeah, the Casio. That was actually the word I was looking for, and I lost it. So the next thing. So first, give every period of focus. 2, smart warm up. 3, coach on the run. 4, make your transition smooth. Move from one period to the next, or give your team some time. So I guess let me stay on that one for just a minute. So be realistic is another tip that is a bonus one for today. So if you can't get from one end of the field to the other, then don't schedule them things back to back as if you need 6 minutes of this, and the minute it's over, you need 6 more minutes of this on the other side of the field. Make it 8 minutes, knowing you're going to get 6, or live with 4 if that's what you know you're going to get. Make a plan for that. So, not really advocating for people to like get more efficient. I hope they'll get more efficient, but if you can't get more efficient, just be realistic with your transition. So when you said we're going to get, because what'll happen, Chad, is you're running something like verticals, and you're going to run the 7th vertical is going to be out a bunch where they got to spread out. You know, it's a different route. Well, if you got that thing as the 7th one and you don't get to it, maybe that happens 2 or 3 times in a row. You may go a month without running the damn thing and not even really realize, because, you know, you work verticals everywhere. So you got to put the plays you want to run on the script to ways you can run them, and transitions are a key to getting more reps of football. It just is. All right, the next tip. Technology is your friend. That's a real earth shatter. But it fits into the transitions are key, coach on the run. You know, film, if you have to film things, and you can say, oh, we don't have all that fancy. Look, everybody's got a phone. Everybody. And if you got to stand behind them, and I'm talking about individual, Chad, I'm not even just talking about team and I mean, if you're a position coach and you need to film an individual period, film it with your phone. As opposed to stopping it and taking forever to preach. You got 6 minutes and they only got 1 rep, and then you talk for 5 minutes. Video it, show them later. Show them in addition to what you needed. So you needed 6 minutes of pass pro. Don't take any of that time to show them what they did wrong. Add to it at the end of practice, post practice, show them the video or whatever. So also one thing that Chad and them did, or all of our line coaches did, not just Chad, but we started setting up the O linemen because, none of them some guys playing D line. Be nice if they could have, but they couldn't. And so defensive period, we let them go watch film at practice. Sometimes set it up almost like a Friday night with the sideline stuff. You could set up chairs and have a TV or whatever right there at practice. So they can go right over there and watch something if we just filmed it or whatever. I thought that was a fantastic thing. And actually, I think if I was coaching now, we'd be doing even more of that because it's gotten even easier to do that, have that instant replay, to show kids what they're doing wrong.
If you make sure you get them linemen a tent or something to sit under. They need some shade.
Coach needs a chair too, also.
You guys see why. You look at my record and you'll see we lost some games. Now you know why. I think Chad's going to really like this tip coming up that says there's one in a week or two that says if you want the players to be tough, the coaches have to be tough. So I'm going to give.
He's probably not going to be here that week. Just go ahead and pencil that in.
I might have another colonoscopy happening again.
Finally, on the practice list, organize the special team. Now, hear me on this one. I think this is
the scout team. I think is what
I'm sorry, I said organize the scout team.
Yeah.
Each period needs a focus, smart warm up, coach on the run, transitions are key, use technology, and organize the scout teams.
Scout team. The scout team's taking years off every coach's life.
This is the hardest one, right?
Well, yes and no. It is the hardest one. It's a pain, but it's going to be a pain either way. It's like Flat's colonoscopy. It's going to be bad either way. You might as well have done all that stuff they told you to do the day before because it was going to be bad either way. It was just going to be worse if you didn't do that stuff. So think of the scout team when you think of Chad's procedure. But the scout team, those guys never know where they're going. They never, I'm going to give a little more foreshadowing. Next week's tip is spend a little more time planning and a little less time gossiping. So a little less worrying about who might get the Buford job and a little more organizing the scout teams when you got a few minutes.
Because it's not you, most likely.
Most likely not you. If organizing the scout teams is busting your ass, yeah, it's probably not you. But all joke, we digress there a little bit. Let me get on to the real topic, which is you need to figure out who's going to be on these scouts. And I had a guy, I've used this clinic talk a few times this offseason on these different things that people can use. And I had somebody ask me, like, Coach, we don't have a very big team. We got 30 kids on the team. How do you suggest we organize scout team? Great question, by the way. I would say when I say organized scout team, it may be a bag holder. It may be a bag, an actual bag, and nobody holding, or a pop-up, but we need to know when we go to inside drill, Johnny is playing left end, left defensive end, and it knows we're going to put this other kid, and maybe it's a period where we're reading somebody and we figure these two are going to hold bags, and this one's going to be a live person, and the live person is going to move around based on who we're reading. So we got the guy that's going full speed to read. Everybody else on the back, but we know that going in. So I'm the head coach, or I'm the offensive coordinator, Chaz O-line coach. We got a wide out coach, running back coach, whatever. We've already talked about all that. We already know that Johnny's doing that. He's a good one at reading. He at least gives effort. Unless he's going to read, and we're going to have that posted if at all possible. So these guys, now, do they look at it? Hell no, they don't look at it. But at least you can say you did it. And then it makes you have to plan. People totally mistake why you should post things and why you should plan things. Why should you send the principal all the coaching responsibilities. One, it covers you. He or she's not going to look at it, but also it makes you have to write them down. You know, if you post to scout teams, yeah, they're not going to look. You're still going to have to holler for Johnny, but at least you're ready to holler for Johnny. You got it written down. Find ways to get your scout team organized. So even if you're only doing half line because you got 25 kids on the team, let's organize this half line. And I'd have a backup and say, Coach, we ain't got 22. No. I'd have, if it was a scout defense, I need like 4 D linemen, 4 backers, 4 corner, 4 secondary guys somehow, or that's 12 people, or maybe even 5 of each. So you have 15 people. And one of them's every D lineman's backup. And if 2 people are out, we just have to do the best we can. But we at least had a plan for that. Get organized with your scout teams. And this will bleed into the next week, because if I was given this speech back to back, I would stop there, go to the next tip, which is quit gossiping and start planning. And I would say, this is the type of thing that how often do you see people in the field house go in the field house after practice, spend 45, 50 minutes there doing nothing. I mean, so we have to supervise kids. So there's a certain amount of time that somebody needs something in the equipment room, somebody needs to talk to coach, somebody's supervising kids. I'm not talking about that period of time. I mean, that kind of fades out, and there's another group period of time where everybody's just kind of sitting around BS and talking about who's getting a job or something, or that they heard so-and-so was getting field turf. And I like those kind of talks too, by the way. But let's get this done first. Don't say you don't have time when you're spending time doing that. Get down and say, hey, what are we going to do with the scout D tomorrow? Who's, give me 4 linebackers. Michael's going to put the best 2 in. We'll have 2 ready to go. And I know some of them aren't any good. This kid, you'd be like, Coach, this one, he can't go in. Give him a hand shield. We'll let him run with a hand shield, and we'll at least just kind of cover him up. But we got, so all that's getting taken care of before you get on the field. The practice reps are way. What y'all got to say about the scout?
I mean, I think we hit on it a little at the beginning. Like, this is definitely the one that's the hardest. It takes probably the most effort to do right.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to put all this effort into it, and you're going to have it set up. You've got these 2 groups, and you got 22 kids, and they're going to run these 2 huddles, and then 4 of them aren't going to show up. So, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it.
Right.
Like, you just got to maybe go a little bit further and have a few backups in these roles. And like say, yes, this is easier on a bigger school because you got more players, but you got to adapt it to what you do have. Focus on what you do have, not what you don't have. So it's going to have to work for you. You're going to have a scout team, no matter if you got 15 people on your team or whether you got 115 people on your team. So you got to figure out what works for you. And it's not going to be magic. It's not going to happen that first time that you came up with this magic plan. But as you understand how you're practicing, then you'll figure it out, and you'll have to make it work for you.
No, that's right. What do you say, Chad?
No, I do think that what you said, you have to identify about 15 kids, like you said, and know they're the ones that have to be in there, so that it's very easy. And it just takes time. You got to know. And if you do a good job with this, you actually, when you're getting ready to play someone, you kind of identify, this kid will be better here. Let's put him there, which always blows up in your face because when them kids don't show up one of them days, and it's just one of the things that happens. But you've got to do the best for your kids to have them in the right place to give the best look they can all the time. That's the hardest thing to always do, is give the kids a quality rep to go against. For most high school teams, you don't just have really, really good players on every side you run into.
Well, one of the things that I hope we can impress upon people is how important it is to do this. We spent all this time now talking about this, but yet the best way to make it go is a coach to care about it and really try to do a good job, and not just limp through because it's the scout team.
Right.
And I preferred to work with the scout team. I think one of the things that helped us on offense, I would go get like a kid and say, hey, come here, you're doing that. And I'd tell them sometimes to play ahead of time. or tell them to squeeze or tell them to, make something harder on us. And it became, if they could run the offense without you, if you're the offensive coordinator, you're almost better off over there helping with the scout. If they could run the defense without you, you'd almost be better off on the, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that's not a little idealistic. It doesn't always work that easy. But if it's that important, this is, I guess, what I can end my point on this one, Chad. You'll like this. If I just said in a perfect world, the offensive coordinator run the scout team, the position coaches coach their position, the plays are already scripted out, and you're running the scout team, then why does the guy that wants to be the coordinator think he's too good to run the scout team? Like, that's something I don't understand. Like, if you want to be the offensive coordinator next year or 5 years from now, you be the best damn scout team organizer that's ever lived. And you don't get discouraged when Johnny goes on a dentist appointment. Get his little backup in there and get him coached up. People will start noticing you. But they don't. It's like something about it. They can't stand it. Mm-hmm. It's that group of coach, the one that's the next one up that thinks they're the next guy. That's the one I'm talking to right now. And that's the guy that really struggles with this. You know who's good at scout team coaching? Guys that gotten their ass kicked and run off somewhere and are just happy to be on the team.
Like I'm not going to name good special team.
I'm not going to name any of those people on this podcast, but one of us applies. But you agree, right, Chad, that, that is something. If you want to make a name for yourself, do a great job practice, help the team win some games. You want to help the team win some games. Coaching a scout team is a great way to help the team win some games.
Winning's better than anything else.
That's Flat's tip for this one.
Mm-hmm. That's my tip for the day.
Winning is more fun than losing.
Correct.